Today, we're going to talk about why the Calvin Ridley suspension is good news for Kyle Pitts, how the Florida Gators baseball team schedule is about to ease up finally, and how Dameon Pierce's quiet combine meant nothing for his draft stock. Only here on Locked On Gators.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your listen of the day. We're available daily and free wherever you listen to podcasts. Today's episode of Locked On Gators is brought to you by Run Your Pool. March Madness is here, and Run Your Pool has a better way to create your bracket. RunYourPool.com, the premier sports pool hosting service. Happy Tuesday. I am Brandon Olson. Twitter is WNS_Brandon. Written work with Whole Line Sports. Getting right into it, the big news of yesterday that kind of shocked the sports world a little bit. Calvin Ridley, the Atlanta Falcons wide receiver, who took off for most of last season, stepped away from football for mental health concerns. And he is evidently stepping away from football again for just a year, as he has been suspended now for gambling on NFL games, including games that the Atlanta Falcons played in. So, yeah, he's in a little bit deep doo-doo there. Regardless on your stance of whether or not Calvin Ridley should be suspended for a year or at all or however long, forever, whatever it may be, fact of the matter is it's happened. He's gone for he's suspended indefinitely, but at least a year. So there's that, and that's going to impact Kyle Pitts, who is, of course, the unicorn. The former Florida Gators tight end that was the 4th overall pick for the Atlanta Falcons last season. With Calvin Ridley active, Kyle Pitts played 5 games and he had 34 targets, 22 catches, and 352 yards. So an average that is 6.8 targets, 4.4 catches, and 70.4 yards. Without Calvin Ridley, 12 games, 76 targets, 46 catches, 674 yards, and a touchdown, averages 6.3 targets, 3.8 catches, and 56.2 yards per game. And yes, on an average basis, Calvin Ridley's absence, it did in fact hurt Kyle Pitts' numbers, because on average he was slightly worse with Calvin Ridley off the field as with Calvin Ridley on the field. But there's also a number of factors that went into that. The Falcons went through it a bit with their offense here and injuries specifically. I know talent-wise, not great, but injury-wise, offensive line-wise, you look at any other receivers that might have been injured. Russell Gage missed a few games, and the wide receiver 1 and 2 spots were constantly just cycling in. It seemed like, Zacchaeus was constantly coming in and out. It was rough, and Kyle Pitts was kind of the only guy that was there for an extended period of time. And yeah, while the numbers did take a dip, NFL defenses got to kind of focus and key in Kyle Pitts, because it was, look, who else is getting the ball? It's Patterson and Pitts. That's it. Like that was it. Mike Davis wasn't a big part of the passing game last year. It was very rough to be an Atlanta Falcons fan. I know a lot of you guys are Bucs fans, so congratulations. I'm sure it was very fun for you. But looking at just the team in general and Kyle Pitts' production, he took a little bit of a hit with Calvin Ridley out. And I think that this is going to be different this year, because look at what happened last year, what the situation was last year. Calvin Ridley stepped away from the team to take care of his mental health, which I have no qualms with whatsoever. That's fine by me. It was in the middle of the season. It's very different from this year, when it's now March 8th. Calvin Ridley has been suspended for at least a season. And now it's free agency. It's pre-draft. The Atlanta Falcons have time to kind of focus on building this offense even more around Kyle Pitts. Calvin Ridley was a trade option before that, but now it's, look, Kyle Pitts is the guy. There's nobody challenging him for that. So He's going to play more out wide. He's going to play more in line than he did last year, too, more in the slot. He's going to move around more. He's going to be involved more in this offense. And that's big. What does really suck is that, well, that wide receiver one that was supposed to be here and supposed to be the kind of guy where it's like, well, you can get them both with double coverage. That guy is now gone. And free agency, you can still get that, Again, I know you guys are Bucs fans. Chris Godwin is someone who, as of the time of recording this, has not been tagged yet. So Chris Godwin is someone who could hit free agency and be that guy, provided he's healthy. There are options around. There are options everywhere. And Arthur Smith and Terry Fontenot and this franchise, they've fumbled some things before. Not Smith and Fontenot, they're new, but the Falcons in general have fumbled some things. But that is not going to be the case this year. You get the entire offseason now, or pretty much the entire offseason now, to build your roster to fit those needs. You get to improve the offensive line, which is going to happen. You get to improve your receiving core, which can't get worse, so it's going to happen. And you get to build that whole season game plan. You get to look at this season and say, we've got these guys, this is what we have. And not these weeks, but you get to look at this team and you get to say, we can build this. Like, we can build this game plan around him going into the season. It's going to be some week 6, Calvin's gone kind of thing. It's going to be week 1, Calvin's gone. Week 2, Calvin gone. Week 1, all the way through 18. And that's actually an added bonus. It sucks what happened. But Kyle Pitts will become the true focal point of this offense. There will not be a question as to whether or not he can be that guy. He's going to be that guy. He's going to be game planned around, because a year ago today, he wasn't even drafted yet. He wasn't even a Falcon at this time. Now you get to spend that whole time building around him and figuring out what worked last year, what didn't work. How did other teams approach Kyle Pitts and defend Kyle Pitts, and how can we kind of negate that, and how can we counteract that? So it's going to be big for Kyle Pitts that Calvin Ridley is gone. It sucks, but it means Kyle Pitts is just further cementing himself as the focal point and the franchise piece of this offense moving forward. And expect those 6.3 targets per game without Calvin Ridley. They're going to go up to 8 to 9 targets. That is a catastrophic failure by this Atlanta Falcons franchise, which we've done before. Hello, 28-3. We're going to shift gears just a bit to talk about Florida Gators baseball in the next coming weeks. But first, I want to talk to you guys about Stat Hero. If you participate in March Madness brackets every year and you suck every year, like I tend to do, which I used to crush, and then I learned about college basketball and I knew things, and I was like, I can figure out these matchups, and guess what? No, I can't. I suck at those. Stat Hero's NCAA single game pick'ems pit star players against each other in a hybrid of fantasy and sports gambling. Stat Hero gives you the advantage, resulting in their gamers winning 4 times more often. And why is that? Because Stat Hero eliminates the mystery of who or what you're going against. Sign up for free right now at stathero.com/lockedon and use promo code LOCKEDON for a 100% deposit match. That's stathero.com/lockedon using promo code LOCKEDON for a 100% deposit match. Terms and conditions do apply. Thanks again for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Be sure to check out the Locked On Bracket Breakdown on March 14th right here on the Locked On Gators podcast feed and YouTube channel. Chris Gordy, Andy Patton, and Sterling give you in-depth breakdowns for every matchup. Will the Gators be there? Got me beat. Florida Gators baseball started the season 10-3, which I'm fine with, considering that they started the season 1-2 after dropping that opening series to Liberty, which is like, it's one of those things where I'm not fine with that, but I'm cool with an 8-1 start after that. Or 9-1 start after that. I think that's fine. Florida did just have a massive series win in Coral Gables against Miami after dropping the first game 2-5, and then the second 2 games Florida outscored the Canes 19-4, and then flashed the little U down, and I know people were upset about that, and that's so rude and so disrespectful and so blah blah blah. I don't care. If you don't like it, stop it. It's the same thing as if you don't like a team running up the score on you, stop them. Be better. If not, get out. We used to have a saying when I played football. It was, if they can't play, blow they beep out. And that's what we'd chant if we had a blowout. That's all it was. And that's what it was. But looking forward for Florida Gators baseball, things are going to continue to brighten up. Over the next couple of weeks, the Gators take on Jacksonville today and tomorrow. I mean, they're no slouches. They played one game against Florida State, handled them 3-2. They won 3-2. And I'm not overlooking them at all, but I am looking at just the next couple of weeks in general. And if Florida can get through these Jacksonville games unscathed, this weekend, Florida's got a nice little setup there. The Gators host an 0-9 Seton Hall team for a 3-game series, which I am very excited for because y'all know at this point, I'm a New York kid. I got a lot of friends that are New Jersey also and Seton Hall fans, and nothing makes me happier than, there are things that make me happier, like Florida State losing and Miami losing, but few things make me happier than Seton Hall getting dominated in any sport, which I love. So Florida gets a 3-game series against a horrid Seton Hall team, followed by a one-off against the Seminoles, who I've now mentioned more times than I wanted to going into this episode, and more times than I'm comfortable with. I'm probably going to go puke after recording this because just Seminoles' name is just awful. But I have to say it again. The Gators are taking on Florida State a week from today before conference play starts for them, and then SEC play begins. And when we look at SEC play for the Florida Gators, they start off with Alabama, who 9-4 in the year. And yeah, I have no problem saying that their 4 losses are against a Texas team that are elite. They're elite. They're ranked number 1. I'd say they're a top 3 team talent-wise in college baseball, if not 1. That's not but that's an Alabama team that's pretty good, I guess. Look, I'm trying to say this without being just blatantly disrespectful to them. Florida's 10-3 and hasn't played an insane schedule. Alabama's 9-4, and they've played a pretty bad schedule. I'll say that. They lost to Texas 3 times. That's fine. Then you're 9-1 outside of those. But I feel like they've been pretty dang inconsistent. Their pitching staff hasn't been dominant. Their bats haven't been dominant. They've been pretty inconsistent overall as a unit, and so that's why I'm not super scared of them. Or not super scared. I'm not scared of them at all. I don't think they're a great team right now. So I'm gonna hope that Florida can get into it. But when we look at SEC play, the first series is against Alabama, and I'm looking forward to it. After that, things get rough. They do. Things get a little rough with LSU down, and LSU is a team that I think they're better than Alabama at baseball. So LSU is a team where I'm gonna say that their schedule's easing up with LSU, but over the next week and a half, 2 weeks, Florida. You've got Jacksonville, who's a team that you should beat handedly. You've got Jacksonville. You've got a very bad Seton Hall team. You've got a Florida State team, which you can beat them. We know that you can beat them. And you've got Alabama to start SEC play. And I think Alabama's a great SEC opponent to start SEC play, because you look at Alabama, I don't think they're great. They're not bad, but they're not great. They're not bad. And they're a team where you really get to find out, what are the Gators going to be like in conference play? And just thinking about players, specifically, can we talk about Blake Purnell for a second? He's pitched in different games. He's made 7 appearances. He's had 14 innings pitched. He's got an ERA of 0.00, just straight big fat goose eggs across the board there. He's allowed just 8 hits. He struck out 14 batters in that time, so a strikeout an inning. And he's allowed just 1 run, but obviously it was unearned. ERA is a perfect 0.00. Brandon Sproat and Nick Ficarata they've been on fire this season too. The pitching staff has just been built different at certain points, or really throughout this season. Hopefully the bats can come alive. I realize that saying hopefully they come alive makes it seem like I'm like, oh wow, they suck. No, I just want them to come alive a bit more consistently, I'll say. I want them to get more into a rhythm and take advantage of right now having weaker opponents to play against. And I want to say I think that this team is about to bounce in a big way, and I think SEC play might start off with the queen sweep of the Alabama Crimson Tide. And March Madness is just a few weeks away. That means you need to start thinking right now about where you're running your brackets this year. And I have a suggestion. It's a place I'm using. runyourpool.com. ESPN, CBS, you don't compare. When you use runyourpool.com, you'll be able to set your bracket with me and Locked On Gators listeners for free, which we'll set up again closer to bracket time. But a bigger thing about that is that you can join runyourpool.com/lockedon, and you can set up that bracket where you get to compete for a cash prize against myself, other hosts, and a whole bunch of listeners. So you get to compete for a cash prize for just setting your bracket. It's a set it and forget it kind of thing. You don't have to worry about anything after that. If you want to set up your own, you can go to runyourpool.com and use code PUREMADNESS. Free to sign up, free to use, free to play. You only have to pay if you set up your own bracket. Runyourpool.com/lockedon for a chance to win a cash prize for free. Anybody else make money this weekend? I know I didn't. You know who else didn't? A certain player that we talked about in the first segment of today's show. He did not make money this weekend. I could tell you that much. BetOnline.net is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all of your sports action. Obviously, Florida losing threw a whole lot of wrenches in my plan because, basketball. I bet that they would win. I bet Florida money line against Kentucky, even though I was like, every fiber of my being was like, don't do it. That's a dumb thing to do. And guess what? I did it anyway, and I lost because of it. BetOnline even covers award shows, TV shows, and reality TV with real-time updated odds and props on almost anything you can imagine. It's the best way to place your bets, and it's 100% free to sign up. Head to the website or use your mobile device. That's how I do it. Sign up today. BetOnline.net is where the game starts. Now we're talking about the NFL Combine, which was this past weekend, of course, and it was dope. You got guys like Kyrie Elam ran a 4.39, one of the fastest defensive backs out there. And also, if you didn't see yesterday, Law Draft put out a mock draft, and Kyrie Elam does go in the first round. I won't tell you where, because I think you should go check. I'll tell you it's towards the end of the first round, but you should go check it. Eric Crocker is just chef's kiss with his DB analysis. But we're not talking about a DB right now. We're talking about a running back. That is Dameon Pierce, who I feel like right now he might be one of the most widely beloved running backs just in the draft community. 21 reps on the bench was good for third amongst running backs at the Combine. 34.5-inch vert was eighth amongst running backs at the Combine. There were 24, if I'm not mistaken. His 9'11" broad jump was one of the worst among running backs, and his 4.59 40 was, towards the end of the pack for the running backs. But here's the thing, and I'm going to let you guys in on a little secret that Florida fans, you probably know. But if you're listening to this because you just searched Damien Pierce's name and you saw it, that's fine. I'm going to let you in on a secret. Those numbers don't mean a damn thing. Why is that? Because Damien Pierce, first of all, if you went into the Combine, if you were a listener and you're like, hey, I'm going into this Combine and I think Damien Pierce is going to run a great 40. I think he's going to light it up. Yeah, it's your dang mind. I'll tell you that right now. That was never going to happen. We were going into this hey, if Damien Pierce can hit somewhere in the 4.5s, that's a good 40. And 4.59, sure, it's toward the end of the pack for running backs, but he's a very different build and physique than a lot of those other running backs. So, and a different play style than a lot of those different running backs. So, I don't think it hurts him at all. Like the 4.59 means nothing. He was in the 4.5s, and that was the important part for him, I think. Damien Pierce's game has never been speed. It never was speed, and it never will be speed. His 10-yard split was about 1.62 seconds, which is fine. That's what you would expect from someone like him, because guess what? Burst was never his thing. Burst isn't his thing, and burst probably never will be his thing. The man is not a speed back. He is not an agile back. I mean, he's pretty, but he's not a bursty back. He's not an accelerating back. He's not Bo Jackson out here. No, Damien Pierce. If you've seen the Marshawn Lynch interview that I'm gonna reference, that's Damien Pierce. Where it's like, oh, like, what's your plan? Run through a mother face. Run through a mother space. And eventually, if you keep running through a mother space, they'll be like, I don't want this. Find out what you're made of. And that's what Damien Pierce is. He can run through anything that comes into his path. He does not care. He is the not so speeding bullet. He's just gonna plow through anything. He can't wrecking ball every single time. Arm tackles, you ain't gonna get him. 2 arm tackles, you ain't gonna get him. Throw your whole body at him, you might get him. And even then, I'm going to take Damien Pierce 9 times out of 10 on that. And also, you look at the grander scheme of things. You take away the pomp and frills of the combine. You take away the 40-yard dash. You take away the 3-cone. You take away whatever it might be. And you've got Damien Pierce, who's a damn good football player. And he's done everything that's been asked of him. His tape is fantastic for a running back that lacks those top-end elite athletic attributes. He lacks those, sure, but he is damn good at everything he's been asked to do. Pass blocking, good. Running through people's faces, good. Being a reliable pass catcher out of the backfield, good. Yeah, no, Damien Pierce does all that. Make no mistake. Damien Pierce is one of those guys where, okay, I talked about Kyrie Elam and running his 4.39, and that he helped himself because Trevor Sycamore was here last Monday, and he was like, look, like Kyrie Elam is someone who, if he can crack the 4.4s, that's good for him. He cracked the 4.3s. I can't even decide when he's phenomenal or amazing for him. Damien Pierce is not that kind of guy. Combine was going to define anything for him. He was never that type. He was someone who he went to the combine, and probably the interviews were the most important part for him. Not the bench, which, by the way, Damien Pierce, Florida, was dope for him to do, but he was one of the few running backs that did the bench. But the interviews mattered for him. Unless he ran a 4.8, was never going to matter. Things like that where they don't matter for a guy like Damien Pierce. He's not a workout warrior. Lifting, you don't want to mess with him. He squats like 700 pounds. But when you look at the 40, the 3-cone, the vert, the broad, which, by the way, the bench and the vert were both solid, but broad, everything else was not great. It doesn't matter. He's not the kind of back that needs that elite athleticism. He could just do it himself. So that's why it doesn't matter to him. It's not going to hurt him. I see people being like, oh, like Damien Pierce's 40 really wasn't great. And it's like, if you expected great from him, that's your fault. You failed at that. That was not a Damien Pierce thing. He's going to be just fine. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to podcasts. We'll be back tomorrow with more of your Locked On Gators. And if you want to leave a comment or review on Apple Podcasts, anything, subscribe, follow, all that fun stuff, please do it. We're going to have fun, and I'm always out looking for feedback. Now make your second listen Locked On NFL Draft. Ryan Tracy and former NFL cornerback Eric Crocker bring the NFL Draft to life every insight and analysis on college football prospects and NFL front offices. For Locked On Gators, I'm Brandon Olson. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all of my written work with Whole Line Sports. That is WHOLENINE Sports. And I'll see you all tomorrow.